Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, and here on this Thursday, we have a lot more news going on about basketball than what we previously had, like the following day. As you guys might know, it was a little bit dead in the basketball community, but now it's sort of picked back up, and we're getting a lot more news now going in, so I'm just going to update you guys on all of that. So the first segment is going to be how about the Lakers. Now, love them or hate them, they are a very popular team, and we're going to talk about if they have a legitimate chance of actually making a deep playoff run. And in the second segment, we are going to be talking about the Sweet 16, since those games are going to be they're going to be happening tonight. They start tonight. And then in the third segment, we're going to do our quick recap of all of the NBA games that went down in the previous night. We also have our special fourth segment, so go ahead and stay tuned for that. That will be revealed after the third segment, so again, stay in tune up until the third segment to figure out what the fourth segment is. And before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to tip and donate to get your comments recognized. The link, as I said, will be in the description as well as displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, let's go into the first segment, which is going to be talking all about the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James. You all know that the people that have been listening and the people that have been watching, that you all know how I feel about LeBron, the greatest basketball player to ever walk this earth. And obviously, there's not much that needs to be said about that. He is literally the greatest basketball player to ever walk the face of the earth. And enough said. Now, obviously, being one of the greatest basketball players ever, there is going to be a lot of pressure on you and your team to be as successful as you possibly can be. And one of the biggest stigmas on LeBron's career is winning. Like, a lot of fans, they really criticize him for having a 4-6 finals record, even though that's not entirely his fault, by the way. But still, he gets a lot of criticism for it. And with all that criticism, it comes the expectation, because Michael Jordan, he set that standard where it's like, if you're going to be a GOAT, you have to be a winner, and you have to have that winning mindset. And a lot of people don't think LeBron genuinely has that mindset, and he doesn't have the mentality, or he doesn't have the clutch gene, whatever nonsense that any old head fan wants to bring up that about LeBron. But regardless, the Lakers recently, I might as well go ahead and talk about their recent game. They destroyed the Memphis Grizzlies 136-124. I know the score seemed like really close, but really, like, when you watch the game, like, the game was never really close. Like, the Lakers were in full control the entirety of the game. Now, just to read off how ridiculous the stat sheet was, there was no Anthony Davis, but there was no problem. LeBron James ended the game with a triple-double, 23 points, 12 assists, 14 rebounds. The GOAT, again, the GOAT, Roy Hachimura, ended the game with 32 points and 10 rebounds. So very good production coming in from their role players. Austin Reeves, he had a great game last night, but now he's coming down back to earth. 13 points, but he was able to tally 11 assists as well. And let's see, Jackson Hayes ended the game with 14 points and 7 rebounds, again, fulfilling his role. And D'Angelo Russell ended the game with 23 points and 4 assists. Everybody shot the ball relatively well. The Lakers shot 54% from 3 as a team, and they aren't really known as being like a laser three-point shooting team. So it's very good that the rest of these players, like, surrounding LeBron, are actually like shooters and are actually able to hit their shots. Now, recently, the Lakers have been playing very, very well in a lot of their games. They've been on, I believe they've been on a 6-game winning streak since the last time I covered them. Yes, they've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, no, they're on a 5-game winning streak. My bad, I was one number off. But now this is their 5th game that they've won in a row, and they're a lot more ahead of Golden State, like in terms of seedings, like in terms of record, than Golden State would like, I guess you could say, because Golden State right now is sort of in that little area where it's like, oh no, we could potentially be knocked out of the play-in. Like, we might not even make the play-in at this point, because Houston just comes out of nowhere and just literally just 10-game winning streak out of nowhere and almost ties with the same record as Golden State. Now, I fully expected Houston to lose the last game, but I'll get more into detail on that in the third segment. As I said, the third segment's going to be a recap of all of the NBA games, so I'll hold off on that and I'll continue talking about this. So again, this Lakers team, they've been winning all of these games, and most of the time they don't even have like their entire lineup in these wins. Like, as I mentioned earlier, they did not have Anthony Davis in this win against the Grizzlies, and going up against the Bucks, they didn't have LeBron. So the fact that this team, like, just all of a sudden is now figuring out how to make ends meet and win these really big games against these really big teams, it says something. Like, it's like, where is this the same team that we saw in the beginning? And that ultimately brings up the question, do the Lakers have a chance to make the finals? Short answer, no. I am a LeBron fan, but I am terrified of Jokic in the playoffs. I am absolutely terrified of Jokic in the playoffs, and I can, like, he scares me. The shots that he throws up, like, they're just absolutely ridiculous. Corrido in the chat, he has something to say. He has Steph Curry was crying after Draymond Green got ejected. Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit later in the third segment when I'm recapping all the games. I'll explain like why Draymond got ejected as well. But regardless, back on the Lakers, because LeBron is better than him. Not really, but like LeBron, like, I'm a LeBron fan. You guys know this already. But regardless, they've been winning these games, and they've been doing so by without a lot of their pieces. So imagine when they're all healthy in the playoffs. Obviously, like, that's going to bring in a lot of optimism, not just like from the Lakers, like, as a team, but also like the Laker fan base. Like, this has sort of been like a cycle that they go through, like, a lot of the times. Well, except from the years that they had Russ, this has sort of been like the cycle that they go through with LeBron. They did this exact same cycle last year, and now it's sort of like repeating itself this year. And since it's repeating itself, are we going to see a Lakers and Denver Nuggets rematch in the Western Conference Finals? I mean, probably, assuming the matchups are in the Lakers' favor going into the playoffs. And, accidentally touched the microphone there. That's my bad. But going into the playoffs, if they get the right matchups for a series, then I wouldn't be surprised in seeing them rematch the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. And even then, there's still a possibility that the Nuggets don't even make the Western Conference Finals with how competitive the Western Conference actually is, even though I don't really think that that's the case. Crido's asking what that could be. I don't know. I guess we see this offseason. I'm going to get into that. Like, just hold on just a minute. I will get into that. Just let me finish this first segment first about my glorious king, LeBron James. Like, let me finish that segment, please. But I digress. Regardless, like, going back into the rest of what the Lakers said, and excuse me, I'm just trying to see. Just got a weird message from my computer. I don't know what that was. But regardless, the Lakers, they've been very up and down in the last year. Like, first, in the beginning of the season, everyone thought they were going to be great. Then the regular season came. They aren't that great. Then playoffs roll around. And, well, not the playoffs roll around, but the trade deadline comes around. And then all of a sudden, D'Angelo Russell remembers how to play basketball. And then right after that, they start winning a bunch more games. And now it's sort of like, where is this team at right now? Are they going to make it that far, or are they not going to make it that far? Now, me personally, I don't think they're going to make it that far. Like, I think it's really difficult to really scale like where they will go, because the Lakers, they're entirely dependent. Well, at least it seems like it. I know come towards the playoffs, they're going to be entirely dependent on LeBron James. It happens every single time on every single one of LeBron's teams. There's always going to be that one role player that they desperately need that doesn't show up. Always, always, always will be that one role player. It will always be that one role player. And it's happened so many times, and it's happened every single time in LeBron's career. And it's like, at what point are the role players actually going to step up? Like, will this be the year where all the role players play if they play exactly like how they're playing now, going into the playoffs, then I think they could beat any team. But if they do what LeBron's role players usually do and just completely underperform in the postseason when they desperately need them to perform, I am not entirely sure if LeBron can carry that offense. And even with Anthony Davis, because again, the team to beat is going to be the Denver Nuggets. And I really don't know if Anthony Davis has anything that's going to be able to stop LeBron James. I don't think Anthony Davis has anything that's going to be able to stop Jokic in doing what Jokic does. And that's what ultimately scares me, because it's like there's no real center, I think, that could really guard Jokic and stop Jokic, because there's no stopping Jokic. There's only hoping to contain him, I guess you could say. And even that, containing him, is probably like containing him to just 25 points, 8 assists, and 15 rebounds or something like that. But it's very difficult to because, again, these role players are just so inconsistent, and it happens every single time. And like I said earlier, if they continue playing like how they're playing, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. But you also have to, again, the matchups, they have to be in the favor of the Lakers. So right now, they are the 9th seed, and I believe if they end up winning, at this rate, since they are the 9th seed, and they end up staying in that win-or-go-home scenario of the play-in, because the 9th and the 10th seed, you cannot afford to lose, otherwise you're going to go home. So they're going to be, if they end up winning, they're going to be matched up at the 8th seed at this point. And guess who's the number 1 seed? The Denver Nuggets. So if that happens and that stays the same way, the standings stay the same way that they've been, then the Lakers might just get bounced out the first round. But if for some miraculous reason the Timberwolves or the Thunder, they're the team that gets the number 1 seed, and they're the team that ends up playing the Lakers, then we might be looking at a completely different story here, because the Lakers have beaten the Thunder several times, and they do have a good shot of beating the Timberwolves. Now, assuming that Karl Anthony Towns returns healthy and the same player that he was, might hinder their chances of ultimately going past them. But I've learned to never doubt LeBron until he's actually out, because whenever you do, he proves you wrong. 9 out of 10 times, he proves you wrong. And it's been happening every single time. In 2016, I doubted he was going to come back 3-1. Comes back 3-1. In 2017, I didn't think he was going to... I thought that it was going to be a little bit of a competition to make it to the finals. They lost only 1 game on the road to the finals. 2018, I thought that without Kyrie, the Cavs were done and they were never going to make the finals ever again. LeBron immediately takes them to the finals in 2018. 2020, Lakers get Anthony Davis. I think that they can make noise, but I did not. I thought that playing against the Clippers would be the challenge. LeBron didn't even have to play the Clippers in 2020, and he ends up winning the championship. So again, every single time you doubt LeBron, he proves you wrong. And even in the play-in, like in the play-in game when he played against the Golden State Warriors, I literally could not believe it whatsoever, because it's like the Golden State Warriors, like at that point, Curry was having a ridiculous season, and when Curry's season when they got into the play-in, I thought that they had a good chance of beating LeBron. Nope. LeBron ends up winning yet again. Now, let's see. Carrito, he has something to say. Golden State and the Suns' gameplay versus Jokic is you can't stop him, but you can stop his supporting players. Make Jokic beat by getting 50-plus points. You either win or lose by a single point. I have no idea. That did not make any sense to me. I don't know if I just read that completely wrong, but that just did not make any sense to me whatsoever. But I think what he's trying to say is the game plan was, because I did watch that Suns game, try to make somebody else win the game for you. And yes, I get that that is usually the game plan to stopping anyone that is that dominant. But here's the thing. He's Jokic. He's seen it 1,000 times. His teammates have seen it 1,000 times. The more touches that he gives them, the more in rhythm they're going to get, meaning the more shots they're going to hit. And while Denver lost the previous matchup going up against the Suns, it's like you win some or you lose some, but that's why it's a series. That's why it's a series. And Carrito, he's saying you try to make Jokic a one-man army, and that's the game plan. I mean, even then, that's not really going to work because Jokic is so good in the post. He can literally throw up any shot he wants, and I think it's going to go in. So it's like you can't stop him. You can't stop him from passing. You just have to hope to God that that he starts missing or the rest of his team starts missing. And it might be a better bet to make his team miss or to just force Jokic into difficult scenarios. Because I brought up Anthony Davis because Anthony Davis is known as a rim protector. And he's known for being one of the best two-way players that they've seen. So it's you've got to find some way to stay in front of him, and you've got to find some way to defend him. And Anthony Davis, he has the best chances of stopping him at the rim, because let's face it, nobody's really going to stop Jokic at the rim unless they're just as tall. But with that, we are out of time for this first segment, so I might as well go ahead and conclude. Do I think the Lakers have a chance? Yes, if the role players do their job. If they don't, then they stand absolutely no chance. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and pivot into the second segment where I talk about the Sweet 16. So I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be talking about the Sweet 16 and some of the matchups, what to expect, and some of the stories going into these matchups. So before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please be sure to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talk about the Sweet 16. Oh, wait just a minute. Hold on, because we have some breaking news, baby. Yeah, how do you like that? That's a little graphic that they gave us. That's always nice. So, Paul George and the Clippers. So right now, Paul George is due for an extension going into free agency. And there's belief that the Clippers are unwilling to meet Paul George's expectations for his new contract. I mentioned this previously on the podcast when talking about some of the difficult free agent moves that teams are expecting, because now that the Clippers have acquired Harden, it's like, who are they going to give more money to? Paul George, James Harden. And the Sixers, like this is a quote, Sixers are closely monitoring the situation, hoping the Clippers let Paul George slip away. So there's a possibility that we could have a Paul George and Joel Embiid duo in the near future in the Eastern Conference. Now, I mean, that would be something to see. Like, that would definitely be something to see. Like, Crucial PG in the chat, he says, yuck. I don't understand what's so yuck about it. I mean, it's like, it's Paul George, and Paul George is a great player, and like, he's going to be paired up with Joel Embiid, who was a former MVP. Like, I mean, what is there not to like about that move? Especially, like, I mean, considering how lackluster this Clippers, like, this era of Kawhi and Paul George as, like, a Clippers, how it's been. I mean, like, when you look at it in hindsight, they blew a 3-1 lead in the bubble, and then they take the team farther without Kawhi Leonard. And it's like, Paul George, he can be that guy for the team. And maybe that's like the final step that Philly needs in order to make that next step and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, since they still haven't done that with Joel Embiid. And Corrido in the chat, he's like, Klay Thompson and Paul George are very close friends. Everyone in the league is very close friends at this point. That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything. And regardless, I don't think Paul George would go to that team, honestly. Like, if anything, he would probably stay at home with in LA with the Clippers. But who knows? Again, who knows? It's up in the air, completely up in the air for where he decides to go and what happens. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the Sweet 16 and the matchups that are going on. So, Clemson plays Arizona at 7 on CBS. San Diego State plays against UConn at 7:30. Alabama plays against North Carolina, and Illinois plays against Iowa State. So these are the teams that are going into the Sweet 16. I feel like a lot of the teams, like, in the previous round of March Madness, the games were kind of meh. Like, I mean, you had your, like, one or two upsets here and there, but it wasn't, like, as crazy as, like, previous years have been. Like, for example, when St. Peter's was going all the way. It wasn't as crazy, like, if that makes sense. And with how it wasn't being, like, there's not really, like, a big story that can be drawn out of with college, like, the NCAA college basketball, like how it could have been done or how it was done with St. Peter's going all the way, or even how the women's are doing it. Because right now, women's NCAA basketball and the March Madness is much more popular than the men's side. Right now, like, going off of how many people purchase tickets and how the women's teams and like the women's games, they already sold out. They sold out quicker than the men's. So far, it seems that the women's basketball has been a lot more popular in these playoffs. And that's sort of something that like a lot of people, I think, should monitor. So the Crimson Tide, they're going to take the floor against the number 1 seed, North Carolina. Since they got their new coach, Oates, they've made the NCAA tournament all 4 seasons. They've had him for 4 seasons, and they've made the tournament all 4 seasons. And honestly, like we usually associate Alabama with football and their dominant dynasty that they've always had. Like Alabama is just known for football. So the fact that they've been just as dominant on basketball really shows just how many athletes that Alabama can really bring in. We'll see how that's going to affect it with NIL deals, however. So obviously, it's a very, very big rise in the program because they've only made the big dance just twice in the last 13 years before Oates took the job. So he's already doubled that number in the span of just 4 years, which is honestly like insane. It is incredibly impressive, and it shows how like coaching and like the coaches and the program, it has a lot more effect on the players than in the NBA. So, for example, an NBA player is probably going to play with several different coaches depending on whether they are a role player or whether they are a franchise player. If they're like a star, like a franchise player, it's very rare that they play with multiple different coaches. But when they're a role player, they end up playing with a lot more coaches and things of that nature. And usually in college, when we see a good coach and how they handle the team, because that's really like what a coach does on the college levels. It's like they don't just teach you how to play, they teach you how to handle the game and how to handle pressure. And it's like it could be a make or break for it could be a make or break for a lot of the teams. And 9 times out of 10, the teams are in college, they're only as good as the coach. If you look at Villanova, you'll notice that they have regressed a lot recently since their other coach left the program. And if you look at other programs, like, well, except Quinnipiac, probably, a lot of the times when a good coach leaves, then the program, it starts underperforming, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that it's entirely on the coaches, because it could also be on like the recruitment and things of that nature, but also the coaches are also in charge, like they hold some responsibility in the recruitment process. So if you don't have a good coach, you might not have a good recruiter as well. But again, I digress. Now, Alabama, they're still trying to make it to the Final Four. They haven't made it to the Final Four, but they've made it to a lot of these big games. So outside of 2020, like the event was, the NCAA was canceled due to COVID-19. Alabama has reached the NCAA tournament all the 4 seasons just outside of 2020. So overwhelming majority of college programs would kill for the kind of consistency that the Crimson Tide has shown. So this is their second Elite Eight appearance in program history, in large thanks to their high-powered offense. So the Crimson Tide, they're going to try to outscore North Carolina, and they're going to try to make the game an offensive game and not so much a defensive game. And they average 14 seconds per possession. And in a game where the shot clock is 30 seconds long as opposed to 24, that is the third fastest pace in the country, according to KenPom.com. And they also made the third most three-pointers in the country. And they're on pace to finish as the highest scoring team for the SEC since Kentucky's national title in 1995-1996. So, but unfortunately, many of their point totals have been they've been a necessity. So their defense has been a little meh. So because they allow 80.9 points per game. So think of them like the Pacers. They have a very, very high-powered offense, but at their defense, it's just not there. And when the defense just isn't there, it could leave a lot of room for failure. And I think it's very important in college to note that, because teams that are very strong on offense, there is a chance that they might not even hit as many shots on offense because the pressure is just getting to these players. And when you don't have defense to fall back on, it makes it very, very difficult to play catch up. Then again, March Madness, anything can happen. And when the Tide when they've been at home in like the fast-paced shootouts, like their last outing was against Grand Canyon, Alabama was uncharacteristically sluggish on offense, but they managed to win the game in the end, 72-61. So they do find a way to like make it work, but still, like just having offense isn't really going to be like the best move, in my personal opinion. And I don't think it's ever the best move when you're looking at playoff teams, because again, these teams and like you need something to fall back on. And looks like we have more breaking news, baby. Okay, so I just did that because I just read here that Joel Embiid might make his return. It is a very good likelihood, those are the quotes, that he is going to return before the end of the regular season. So this is obviously a pretty big deal for the Sixers, because I'm thinking like, why? Why even bother trying to bring him back? I don't understand why they would want to bring him back. I mean, obviously, like, they want to win, but I don't see them winning at all in this playoffs whatsoever. Not only that, now they have to play in the play-in. So that means Joel Embiid has to play more games, which means that there's a higher chance that he gets injured in those games. And the energy that a lot of people project on Anthony Davis being like made out of glass, that energy should be shifted to Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid has never had a healthy playoff series in his entire career, and he's never made it past the second round. And now expecting him to just come back and let's see, like if right now the Sixers are the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. And they're going to have to play the Miami Heat in order to take the 7th seed. Now, if they lose to the Heat, that's fine. They could play either the Bulls or the Hawks. But regardless, that would mean that you'd have to play either the Celtics or the Bucks in the first round. And are you seriously telling me that you would want to risk Joel Embiid getting hurt again to play the Boston Celtics, who have 11 more games? Like the game difference between the Celtics and the Bucks is 11 wins. And you're telling me that you want the brightness is doing a weird brightness thing, and you're telling me that you want Joel Embiid to play the Celtics in the first round and risk him getting injured again just to lose in the first round anyway? Because let's face it, Joel Embiid has not been able to beat the Celtics at all. The Celtics, they own Philly. Every single year they've owned Philly, and it's a common trend, and I really do not see that changing whatsoever, especially with Joel Embiid coming from an injury. Like, that's just not it. That's not the right move. But I digress. That was the breaking news, and with that, we are out of time for this second segment. So tune in for the third segment as I give a quick recap of all the NBA games that went down yesterday. So I will be right back after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about, we're going to give a quick recap of the NBA games that happened last night. But before that, there's more breaking news, Jesus Christ. Okay, so breaking news is about Michael Porter Jr. and his brother, who, if you listen to the last segment that I did, recently got taken out of the rotation for the Toronto Raptors for allegedly being involved in a sports gambling problem. And they were looking into 2 games in particular. And you can watch the previous segments where I cover exactly like what that is and like all the details. But Michael Porter Jr., so that's his brother, he had this quote to say: "People in the crowd are saying what they need you to score or what they don't want you to score. Every night you're disappointing someone. It's part of the game now, blah, blah, blah." Just because, like, there's like dots there, things that's not important. Jonte, his brother, loves the game of basketball. "I've known my brother my whole life. I know what type of dude he is, and I know he's excited to play basketball, and I highly doubt he would do anything to put that in jeopardy." So, obviously, these are some very, very nice words coming in from a brother, and words that you'd expect to come in from a brother. To, like, have your brother's back. And, like, even if, like, you're not even if it doesn't necessarily have to be your brother. It could be anyone else that, like, you're just really close with. Like, you got their back, and, like, you know that you got their back. But I will say that this might just be, like, him just being a good brother. Because the allegations, they're a little bit sketchy, and they're like almost too sketchy to not be real, if that makes sense. Like, for it to not be a possibility, that's a little too sketchy. But again, this is still an investigation that the NBA is undergoing, so might not even be true. So let's go right ahead and get into this quick recap. And what might not be true is that he might not have even been, like, participating in, like, the over and under on his stats. But who knows? Still up in the air, still an NBA investigation. So first on the list is, since Carrito, he brought up the Golden State Warriors. I guess he's a Warriors fan. I don't know what it is. Might as well talk about the Warriors beating the Orlando Magic. So I can't do my little jingle with the Orlando Magic. But the Magic, they did not play well in this game, like, at all. The only scoring came in from Cole Anthony coming off the bench with 26 points. Paolo Banchero, he shot very, very poorly this game, 5 of 17 for 15 points. Franz Wagner ended the game with 14 points on 14 shots. So, again, not very impressive coming in from the rest of this team. They shot 31% from 3. That's not enough to beat the Warriors, no matter how mediocre the team actually is. Klay Thompson, actually, before I begin, Draymond Green, he literally got ejected within the first 4 minutes because he was complaining to the ref. And this is a big problem, because if Draymond Green keeps getting suspended like this and keeps getting ejected like this, well, not suspended, if he keeps getting ejected like this, he might get suspended indefinitely yet again. And this hurts the team. This genuinely hurts the team. Now there are talks saying that Now there are people that are thinking that maybe Golden State should just blow up the big three completely. Like Rondo, he said, for me, it might be time to break up the Warriors dynasty. I don't think you should continue to hold on to it, just like they broke up the Big Three in Boston. So now you have teams that are thinking that like this Big Three isn't even enough to win the title. And part of it, well, Draymond's distractions are definitely not helping this team. But as a LeBron fan, yay, Curry downfall. But I digress. I like Curry just as much as any player. I really don't like his fans. That's the main thing. But regardless, speaking of Curry and his fans, Curry ended the game with 6 for 18 from the field, 17 points. But he hit the dagger. He hit a very important shot late in the game when they really needed it. And the stipulation around Curry is that he is not a clutch player. That's just the stipulation around him. I don't think he's a very clutch player. I definitely think he's improved in the clutch compared to previous years. But overall, like in his career, I don't think he's a clutch player. Just overall. Now, obviously, like he is a clutch player now, but I don't think one season of being clutch is enough to encompass your entire career. That's just me. But unless you're LeBron, where 2011 completely encompasses his entire career, if you ask a bunch of LeBron haters. But I digress. So, again, he hit the most important shot of the game, but he only ended with 17 points and shot 18 times. So, let me know in the comments, is that good or is that bad? Because the shooting performance, that's a really bad shooting performance, but at the end of the day, he hit the most important shot for the team. So, like, where would we put this? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Andrew Wiggins ended the game 8 for 17 from the field, 23 points. Klay Thompson, 6 of 13 from the field, 15 points. 3 of 8 from 3. Really, really bad shooting from Klay. It's very, very difficult to see. It's like the ultimate downfall. There was no Kuminga in this game, so the fact that they were able to beat the Orlando Magic without Kuminga is definitely saying something, but again, not saying much. But I digress. Next game, we go on to the New York Knicks. They destroyed the Raptors, 145 to 101. Obviously, since there was no Scotty Barnes, makes sense how the Raptors are tanking and not tanking, but their record is getting worse and worse. So, let's look at the box scores for this Knicks game. Miles McBride, he was the point guard of the day, and he ended the game with 29 points, playing 40 minutes. Jeez. Josh Hart ended the game with 7 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds. We love a little Hart. DiVincenzo ended the game with 16 points, 5 rebounds. Jalen Brunson ended the game with 26 points, 7 assists. And Isaiah Hartenstein ended the game with 15 points. Precious ended the game with 19 and 12. Bojan Bogdanovic ended the game with 18. And Mitchell Robinson, he made his return, ended the game with 8 and 2 on only 12 minutes played, and he did not miss a shot. So, and think about it. This team doesn't even have Julius Randle. I mean, Julius Randle is up and down sometimes, but still, he brings value to the team. So imagine just how much better this New York team is going to be when Julius Randle gets back. Thank the Lord we have something in New York to root for, because you guys know exactly what's coming up. The Brooklyn Nets. Time to talk. So, the Nets, they were this close to losing to the Wizards, another terrible team, and they were this close to letting Jordan Poole have the game of his career. In fact, he probably already had the game of his career in this game. He played 45 minutes, ended with 38 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. Why are we bad at defense? Why are we letting Jordan Poole score so many points? He is not that guy. He is just a shot chucker. Why are we letting this man score so many points? It is irritating, and I literally have a headache just thinking about it right now, because that game was literal torture. I had to watch that man hit bucket after bucket after bucket after bucket after bucket like he is a third Splash Brother. No, he is not. What is this? And then the Brooklyn Nets, on the other hand, Mikal Bridges, 19 points, 47 minutes. Got someone in the chat. Kaizen. Hey, are you a Nets fan? I wonder. But yes, I am a Nets fan. Like, that is the team that I support because I'm from Jersey, and the Brooklyn Nets used to be the New Jersey Nets, so that's the team that's, like, closest to me and, like, my identity. And not only that, I'm a fan of all the New York teams, except the Bills and the Jets. Like, no. But regardless, and the Islanders, because for any of you guys that watch hockey out there, not a big fan of those guys. But regardless, it's like 47 minutes, and you can only put up 19 points. What are you, Kyrie in Game 1 of the Finals? Like, no. Cam Thomas ended the game. Thankfully, he was just as much of a bucket as Jordan Poole was. He ended the game with 38 points, so it essentially canceled out Jordan Poole's scoring production. Thank the Lord. Dennis Schroeder ended the game 8 of 19 from the field, 21 points. Claxton ended the game 8 for 11 from the field, 17 points. And Dorian Finney-Smith, 2 of 9 from the field. You want to know what would have helped us in this game? Defense. You want to know who plays good defense? You guessed it, Ben Simmons. Where's Ben Simmons? I don't know. I have no idea where he is. Maybe we should ship him off. Like, get him off my team. Please get him off my team. That's all I want. If that happens in the near future, I will never complain about the organization ever again. I want him gone. But I digress. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Cavs going up against the Hornets. And again, scoring was relatively, it was meh in this game. Final score was 118 to 111. And the Cavs are expecting to get Donovan Mitchell back in the lineup relatively soon. How soon? Not entirely sure. Maybe just before the playoffs. They're definitely going to need him. Darius Garland, he is good. 14 points and 12 assists. They definitely need a lot. They're definitely missing Donovan Mitchell's production in terms of scoring. Darius Garland, he ended the game 5 of 15 from the field. Again, those assists were very good, but that shooting is not going to help this team. Jarrett Allen ended the game with 24 points, 11 of 14 from the field. That is a former Brooklyn Net that I wish was still on the team because he plays defense and he dunks the ball and he's not scared of laying the ball up when there's a Trae Young in the paint. Evan Mobley ended the game 10 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. And Max Strus ended the game with 19 points. So, relatively good scoring. Again, they were just missing Donovan Mitchell's performance and his production. That's what they were really missing. Now, on Charlotte's side, Brandon Miller came out of nowhere and scored 35 points. He literally just came out of nowhere, and now he's just been a really good scoring option. Well, in the beginning of the year, people thought he was relatively crazy for some of his basketball takes. And now all of a sudden it's he's actually a really good basketball player. 31 points, 6 rebounds. That's not what I said. That's what the media is saying. He's a really good basketball player. I didn't know that. But they didn't really give him that much of a chance. So now that they have, I guess you could say that Charlotte might be regretting it. Let's see. Vesalije Misic, again, forgive me if I botched that name completely, ended the game with, he ended the game with 11 points and 12 assists. Trey Mann ended the game with 17 points. And Nick Richards ended the game with 11 and 10. Let's see. Grant Williams ended the game with 16 points as well. And no LaMelo Ball in the lineup. It's been a while since I've heard Overtime talk about LaMelo. Well, now because their new favorite thing to talk about is Victor Wembanyama. So, been a while since I've heard from LaMelo. Again, he is injured and he is out, so hopefully we'll see him return. I really am a big fan of LaMelo and his play. I think while he is flashy, he does know how to play the point guard position very well, and he definitely knows how to set up his teammates and setting up himself. Now, on to the nitty-gritty. Now, the Clippers going up against the Sixers. So, Kelly Oubre, the big story about this game wasn't even that the Clippers ended up winning 108-107. The big story was the post-game results of what Kelly Oubre did. So, Kelly Oubre, after late in the game, there was a jump ball, and the ball ended up being tipped over to Philly side. Kelly Oubre grabs the ball, only a few seconds left, and goes straight to the paint, tries to go up, but Paul George gets a stop. And Kelly Oubre thought he should have been fouled. I'm just reading the comments right now. Kaizen said Kelly Oubre went off, but not in the game. Yeah, I'm getting to that. So essentially, Kelly Oubre, towards the end of the game, he thought he got fouled, and there was a huge scuffle on the bench. Not on the bench, but it was a huge scuffle mid-court with the refs. And yes, Kaizen in the chat, he says he called everyone a B-word. And by everyone, he meant specifically the 3 referees that he was talking to. So Kelly Oubre, he went, "You are a B-word." I'm not going to say that live on the show. "You are a B-word. You are a B-word. Your mom's a B-word." That's the quote. That is the entire quote of what he said. Obviously, he didn't say B-word. He said the other word. But, you guys can substitute in what exactly that word is. And he hasn't been fined yet, honestly, which I'm very surprised. I thought the NBA was going to hit him with a $100,000 fine, which they probably will towards the end. And it's this is sort of the type of, I understand, you have passion for the game and things of that nature, but it's the game is over, my guy. You did not have to go and cuss everybody out like that. What was that win in hindsight, what was that going to accomplish? That wasn't really going to accomplish anything. And Kaizen in the chat, he says he even went and said he added grandma and their auntie? Excuse me, Kelly. Well, regardless, still, it's really a bad thing to say, and it's really, not something that you would want, from one of your players, to just get thrown out like that. Well, the game was over, but still, it's the game is over. You don't have to argue with that and things like that. But I'm going to do a quick recap of all the other games because we are running out of time for this other segment. I mentioned earlier how the Suns, they beat the Denver Nuggets. Part of that is because of Kevin Durant's ridiculous 30-13 game. But the other part was sort of forcing Jokic to pass the ball and forcing his teammates to win the game for him. Now, another argument could be made that, the Denver Nuggets didn't win because Jokic didn't get a triple-double. Because he didn't. He was 1 rebound short. 22 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds. And he shot 9 of 16 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3. Now, the Suns, I'm not even going to lie, I think the Suns got lucky in this one. Because, again, if his teammates start hitting the shots that they needed to hit, it's game over for them. And Devin Booker did not play well whatsoever. Neither did Bradley Beal. So they really got saved with Kevin Durant in this matchup. Some of the other important games that went down. Let's see. The Spurs, they just played the Jazz. They won 118-1. They won 118-111. Devin Vassell ended the game with 31 points. Victor Wembanyama ended the game with 19, 8, and 6. Not really much that needs to be said. They're both relatively bad teams. And I did completely forget to mention that the Nuggets, they did not have Jamal Murray in this lineup, if I remember correctly. I don't remember seeing him out on the floor while they were playing. Yeah, no, he wasn't in the lineup. Oh, and there's someone in the chat, Kaizen. He said they did not have Murray. Thank you for bringing that up. Because, yes, they didn't have... almost dropped my water bottle. They did not have Jamal Murray, who is a very vital piece to that offense. But still, I feel like they definitely could have won without him. But I digress. Timberwolves ended the game... Well, they obviously beat the Pistons 106-91. Not really much that needs to be said. Jalen Green completely shocks the Oklahoma City Thunder. I did an entire segment on him the other day, apologizing because I clearly just wasn't familiar with this man's game. 37 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists in final OT. And obviously, the Thunder, They did not have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is probably the big reason as to why they did not end up winning this game. But regardless, they still have a very good team and a very competent team that you'd really expect them to beat a team like Houston, especially when Jalen Williams is scoring 23 points and 10 assists, and when somebody else scores 31 points. I am not going to say his name, but you guys can look his name up in the box scores. Not going to say his name. Dylan Brooks ended the game with 20 points, and Amen Thompson, he's been a very, very important player to the Houston Rockets and their success. 25 points and 15 rebounds in this game on 10 of 18 shooting. Very, very impressive stuff coming in from Houston. 10-game winning streak. This is the first time since they had Harden in, I believe, 2018-2019, where they went on a 10-game winning streak. I'm just going to make sure that that's... No, 2017-2018, excuse me, wrong year. This is the first time where they've been on a 10-game winning streak since that time frame. Any other games that I missed? Hawks going up against the Trailblazers. That's a game that, like, again, it's like two mediocre teams, not really anything special. The Pacers lost to the Bulls because the Bulls ended up scoring 125 points on them, and the Pacers, they didn't have anything on offense. Tyrese Halliburton played 31 minutes and only ended with 13 points. 4 of 15 from the field, 3 of 11 from 3. Is this the guy that's supposed to be better than Trae Young? I don't think so. And again, the Pacers, they did not have their offense, and because they didn't have offense, their defense, since they don't have that, they ended up losing in a blowout 125-99. And this is the big problem that this team is going to see in the playoffs. If their offense isn't there, they have nothing to fight with. Absolutely nothing to fight with. And the Bulls, DeMar DeRozan, they ended the game. DeMar ended the game with 27 points. Kobe White ended with 18 points. Caruso ended with 12, 7, and 7. And Vucevic ended with 22 and 12. Hold on, I'm just going to look at the... Okay, I'm going to answer that question in the next segment because we are running out of time for this segment. So tune in for the fourth segment where I talk about Caitlin Clark and her contract with the Big Three and some sort of things that a lot of haters are saying about her being part of the Big Three. But I will also answer your question in the next segment, Kazan. So just give me 1 second. I will be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I told you it was going to be a short break. And with that, we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark being in the Big Three and her contract with Ice Cube. But before that, there is a question in the chat that I do want to answer. It is from Kazan on YouTube. He says, what are your thoughts on today's NBA games? I just added NBA there. I think the Celtics are going to begin resting their players since they locked in the first seed, or at least cutting their minutes. Now, honestly, that's definitely that's what I expected them to do, at this stage in the game. I mean, since they are going away and they're going to be playing in Atlanta, I don't really see Atlanta as a threat to the Boston Celtics or their seeding placements, or even in the playoffs, because there is a chance that they could face them in the playoffs if the Hawks land the 8th seed after the play-in tournament. We'll figure that out once that happens. But I don't really see Atlanta as that much of a threat, especially since they don't have Trae Young in the rotation anymore. So I totally agree with you. I do think they are going to be cutting a lot of their players and allowing them to rest. But even with that, I still think that the Boston Celtics could end up winning this game. Like, something about like their play style and the fact that they shoot a lot of threes. And they also make a lot of threes. And they have a lot of, even when their best players are sitting out, like, I assume that they're going to bench maybe Tatum, maybe even Jaylen Brown as well. But, like, they're going to keep some of, like, their important role players in there so that way, like, I'm pretty sure they're going to keep Derek White in there, and they're going to keep Drew Holiday in there as well. So if you have, because, like, the whole entire starting five is just full of players that can create offense for themselves. So if you have, like, at least two of them, then it's like, I really don't think there's something that the Celtics need to worry about. Santosh Reddy in the chat, yo, what's up? But regardless, like, I don't think that the Celtics really got to worry about much. Like, now, for the other game, the Bucks going up against the Pelicans, I think that's going to be a much better matchup to watch because we get to see Zion go up against Giannis, two dominant players like that are really like known for their like strength and overpowering defenders in the paint, as well as a reunification or like a rematch. Would I call it a rematch? I don't think I would call it a rematch, but like a matchup between the two guards from Portland, like CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. Now, it might be in a lot more favor of the Bucks because I remember recently Brandon Ingram went down with an injury, so not entirely sure of the status for him, if he's day-to-day or if he's even going to be playing in that game. But I am a little bit more excited between the matchup between CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, and the matchup between Giannis and Zion. But it's like, you know, those two players, they go way back in Portland, and it's like they were buddy-buddy, and now they go up against each other. I'm very excited to see that matchup, even though I'm probably not going to be watching those games as much as I'm going to be watching the NCAA Sweet 16, because I'm definitely going to tune into the Sweet 16 a little bit more than I'm going to tune into these NBA games, because there's a lot that could happen in college. But let's go on to the actual segment of the show, which is Caitlin Clark being in the Big Three. Now, I brought this up because I was going to make this a segment for tomorrow. In fact, tune in for tomorrow. I will cover the entirety of the Big Three, and I'll cover like the entirety of Caitlin Clark and her contract, her details, all that kind of stuff tomorrow. But I wanted to talk about her being in the Big Three now, simply because there was this quote from Kenyon Martin Sr. that I just did not like whatsoever, and I wanted to bring that to the attention. So, Kenyon Martin Sr., he was on the podcast with Gilbert Arenas. Now, if you guys don't know much about Gilbert Arenas and his podcast, like, he was a former Wizard. He was a really good guard. He brought a gun to the locker room, but that's a completely different story. And again, like, his takes on his podcast, like, to me, he is a certified hater. In my opinion, he is a certified hater because he says all of these things that just completely, like, demote what these athletes accomplish as if he accomplished anything more than them. Like, I don't really like to talk like that when I'm talking about a very big sports figure and someone who, like, actually played in the NBA. But if we're going to be serious, Gilbert Arenas was LeBron's mop when he was on Washington. And it's like, what did you do in your career that is any better than what any of these guys have done in their career? Like, Caitlin Clark is going to forever be cemented in college basketball. Forever. That record that she holds is going to be a record that is not going to be broken in a long time. What did Gilbert do? He has done no memorable thing to my knowledge, like, nothing that deserves the kind of recognition that Caitlyn does. And here he goes on the podcast inviting Kenyon Martin Sr. to just talk down. And, like, it's not just Caitlyn that he talks down on. He talks down on so many current athletes right now. And it just doesn't make any sense to me because it's like, that is so disrespectful. It disrespects what they're bringing to the game, the changes that they're making, and all of that. Like, even the attention that they're bringing. And I honestly think they do it in part for attention. Because what is the need to talk down on a female basketball player for joining the Big Three? Like, why is there a need to talk down on that? But I digress. So, the quote, because I didn't even bring up the quote, Kenyon Martin Sr. said, "The Big Three, it's a step under prison ball. You got prison ball, you got Big Three. Imagine her getting stuck down on Reggie Evans. It's 3-on-3. She can't hide nowhere." First of all, I have no idea what he's even trying to say in this quote at all, because I guess she's saying that she's going to be a defensive liability, but that's as if Trae Young isn't a defensive liability. That's like saying that Halliburton's not a defensive liability. That's like saying Allen Iverson wasn't a defensive liability. Like, or was a defensive liability, my bad. Like, of course, all of these players, like, the lack of size, it's going to be a problem defensively. But look at the other side of the floor and what they could bring. Like, I think he's jealous because I think Caitlyn is better than his son. That's my personal opinion on it, but I digress. Regardless, it's like, these takes are just so selfish and, like, unnecessary to me because so what if she's going to get backed down by a bunch of these bigger men? That is expected. Like, not just because, like, she's a woman and she's a man, but it's because of the height difference. Like, Trae Young is going to get backed down by players that are twice his size. That is normal, but he makes up for it on the offensive side of the ball, which is why he's valuable. And I don't understand why critiquing someone's lack of defense is necessary in this point, because I can't really remember a female basketball player currently in the Big Three. Like, usually the Big Three is like for retired NBA players and like players that come from overseas, things of that nature, at least from what I've seen. So having a woman, like a very, very good woman in the Big Three, not only is it like interesting, but it also brings in, you're forgetting the media attention that it brings. Caitlin Clark is a very, very big name now, and that's just going to bring more people to want to watch the Big Three. So don't even think of it as like, don't even hate on her just like because she can't play defense, because she's bringing in the money and the revenue that is needed in the channel, just like how she's going to bring the revenue and money that's needed in the WNBA. But I digress. That's essentially what I wanted to talk about, because I just don't agree with that quote whatsoever. I think it is selfish. I think it is ignorant. I can't stand it because it's hating for no reason. Like, sure, obviously, if she goes up against someone that's taller than her, she's obviously going to get bodied. But anyone would get bodied like that. That is normal. And I feel like the hate is just so unnecessary. But I digress. So with that, that is the final segment of the show, and that is the end of excuse me. That is the end of the podcast. So thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Do not forget to please use the link that is in the description to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcpodcast.net. It is also displayed below the ticker. Helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. And that is, again, that's the end of the show. Thank you once again. I am your host, Nelson. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.